right, welcome back to the show, everybody. We are live here from the Independent Insurance Agents of Nebraska convention, and very excited for this conversation. We're actually going to have a two-part series here with Steve Anderson, and Steve is here to have one of the keynote presentations at the convention. And he has a deep background in the insurance industry, being an advisor to insurance agents. He's written best-selling books. And so we're going to get into a few of the things that he's focused on now in the next couple of episodes, and we're really excited to bring them to you. So enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Getting Past the Premium podcast, where we focus on breaking down risk management problems bit by bit until we find a solution. If you would like to discuss anything you hear on GPP with us, please reach out using the links in the description. Enjoy today's episode.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, Steve.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think this worked out well for, you were coming in for the convention.
I don't do a lot of these live, so this is sort of a new experience. So that's
good.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. We haven't done any virtually, actually, because we've been fortunate to be able to get guests that are
local.
And we prefer that. I think it's a better conversation,
absolutely.
But we're lining some up virtually now.
You might be the first guest that actually flown in to do our podcast.
I flew in to talk to you guys.
I think yeah, we'll
that's a good point.
We'll send you a plaque. Does anybody hand those out anymore?
So I kind of want to focus. We're going to do this two-part series, and we talked about focusing kind of this first conversation around Catalyit.
Mm-hmm.
But before we kind of jump into that, I thought it'd be good just to give the listeners your background, your history, kind of the bio of Steve Anderson, before we kind of jump in.
Well, if you're watching on the video, you can tell I have a lot of background now, but I will do my best to keep it short. I think the important piece here is early in my career, I worked in two different independent agencies, one in the Washington, D.C. area, one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And that's really where I got my kind of first taste of technology. I brought in that first agency, our first in-house agency management system in about 1982.
Whoa.
So really early on. And in the second agency, I was a producer in that agency as my primary role, but I kept my fingers in operations. And I was involved with a project of moving that agency from paper-based files to digital files.
Wow.
Right, which today is kind of like, oh yeah, well, of course. But that was 1994.
Wow.
When we started that process.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, kind of early adopters of some of the stuff that's commonplace today. And then really found I liked the technology. So in 1999, started my own firm, basically doing research, writing, speaking, and consulting focused on independent agents and brokers and their technology needs, helping them, find what they need, implement it, and get the maximum value out of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So then over the years, that kind of maybe walk through the evolution of getting to Catalyit and what Catalyit is.
All right. So let me first say what Catalyit is, because that probably will help. So Catalyit is a platform that I have co-founded and developed in partnership with 7 state Big I associations. And the purpose is, it really is taking what I've done for 25 years and building it and scaling it. So its purpose is to help agents discover, evaluate, select, and implement the technology they need to continue to thrive. And again, that's a wide range of stuff. In fact, we have, right now we have 19 categories of technology.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Wow.
So website, management system, quoting platforms, chatbot, video, kind of all the stuff. And so these 7 states came together, invested in Catalyit, pretty significant amount of money, and then took my stuff for 25 years, and that's the foundation for it. So it is a membership site for members of state associations that are associated with Catalyit. And actually, I can announce for the first time, Nebraska the board voted yesterday to become part of Catalyit, so all the Nebraska Big I members will have access to information.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. I love being the show that we can have the first float-in guest
and announcement. And announcement.
Yeah.
So that's the background of Catalyit. I would say the evolution is about 2 years ago now, Lisa Lounsbury, who's the CEO of the Big I of New York, called me up and explained their thought at the time, which was our members need help with technology and we don't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. And so they had a strategic goal. In fact, all the 7 partner states all have had strategic goals around helping their members with technology. Explained that vision. They were kind of fits and starts and figuring out, okay, how do we do this? What does it look like? And she asked that fateful question. You wouldn't be interested, would you? And as I say now, it's like I think I surprised her and me by saying yes. So we've worked for 2 years. Officially, the company launched in March, and we actually launched the platform in mid-October, so just a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Well, because I think it's super important. I heard you were on a podcast talking about it a couple months ago. I wish I could remember who. But it made a ton of sense to me because there are so many platforms out there now in the insurtech space. And we were talking on the show before the show that, these are coming out in a lot of regards to, at first, displace the independent agent.
Right.
I think we've figured out they've figured out that's
I think they've figured out, agents are, why are you still here?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like a surprise.
We're resilient.
My phrase right now is remarkably resilient.
Well, that's even better. So, and now there's a bunch coming out to support the independent agents, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I thought was so awesome about the platform is, we don't, as the agent working with clients every day, a lot of times have the time to do the research and understand it. And if we have that partner, Catalyit, that can do that, I think it helps a ton because where I'd like to then take this and get your thoughts is technology, I think, is a phenomenal piece that can, if used right, can help us become and be more of that advisor to our client, be the human element versus the efficiency and the transactional piece of the business. And so I don't know if you have thoughts around that with the technology.
Oh, I'm sure I have thoughts around a whole lot of things. So
but how you're seeing.
Yeah, so I think a couple things come to mind, and I think one way to think about Catalyit is large agents or brokers often have a CIO, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe a CTO, some of the very biggest ones, a person whose job is to keep up. Right? To be strategically thinking what technology is out there that can help improve. A typical Big I member doesn't, right? They're maybe 2 to 12 or 15 employees. They're going and blowing and selling and doing all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know technology is important, but how do I do it? So Catalyit really is being a virtual CIO for those agencies on a very inexpensive monthly subscription basis. So when a question comes up, a problem comes up, they've got someplace to go, and they can get not just what other agent it might be doing. That could be great information, but also expert people. We have a team put together that are some of the top minds and thinkers in insurance agency technology. So it's a deeper understanding of the technology and what it might be able to do for somebody. And I think that discover part, people don't realize how hard it is. I mean, my full-time job for 25 years has been discovering, right? And then trying to think, okay, is this something agents could use? If so, how?
How does it fit in?
How would it fit into their workflow and their normal processes? And frankly, how do you get employees to buy into it, right? Because technology seldom fails. Implementation often fails.
So on the heels of that, like where on the curve are we for the common independent agent adopting technology? Do you still feel like we're in that infancy stage, or do you feel, and are you feeling the velocity increase for adoption?
So it's not a one all for every agent. We have, and again, at Catalyit, we've talked about this, there is a percentage of agents, we can guess what it is. I'm thinking 20 or 25%.
I was going to say the 80-20 rule. I mean, that's
that are already retired, they just haven't sold and checked out yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so they're not willing to invest. Why should I invest money when I know I'm going to cash out here soon?
right.
Or I've never done it that way, or I don't understand. I mean, lots of reasons why.
Yeah.
That's not our focus. That's fine for them. You've got at the other end, so that's why it's not clear. At the other end, you have an interesting trend that I've been tracking for a few years now around all the M&A, right? Mergers, acquisitions of agencies.
A lot.
Latest Future One study, about 38,500 independent agencies, hasn't changed much, right? Even with all the M&A stuff, which is sort of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
A little over 14% of those agencies are 5 years or younger.
Wow.
Which
kind of makes sense.
Kind of makes sense. You get a producer and maybe some staff who've been happy in a smaller environment, now get into a big organization with all the layers of who knows what.
Yep.
And I go, I don't want to do this.
Pressure of paying for those multiples that the owner just sold
and I would say, or they didn't have any ownership, so they didn't get anything.
Right.
And they're like, what's this?
Yeah, see you later.
I'm going to build my own.
Yeah.
So I can do that at some point in the future. Those typically younger, I don't think exclusively, but I would say typically younger, technology to them is just invisible. I mean, it just is. So there's no question that they're going to adopt everything. And I think it's easier today than in my entire multi-decade career to start an agency than it ever has been. Technology's there, market access is there. It's just with the hustle we know it does take, but the tools are there and they're less expensive than ever. In general, I would say my exception to that is agency management systems, but that's a whole nother conversation that we may or not. We don't have time to get into. I would suggest.
I've named names.
It's definitely. They're very familiar with who we like and dislike, and you can imagine what column they fall into.
Yeah.
So on the heels of that, I mean, this is an interesting. Just an interesting conversation here, because going back to what Elliot was talking about, becoming more of an advisor, the other way that you could frame that is, creating value from the relationship perspective and differentiation amongst the rest of the group here. So if it's easier than ever for anyone to go out and start in this business, what are you seeing as the most powerful technology or multiple technologies to differentiate and tell your story as an advisor different than somebody else in the business to enhance that value prop? Because it's like, that's also a threat, right? We're breaking down all these barriers to get into the industry. So we're going to have everybody come in that sees opportunity. You better be dang good at differentiating yourself and articulating your value to your prospects and clients, because there's somebody else that's banging on that door.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one aspect to that I would say, though, is the insurance knowledge still is required.
Yeah.
Right. And that is not somebody just off the street going, oh, hey, I hear I can make more money in insurance. Building that knowledge base and being that advisor, right, is still important and still really hard. So that said, all kinds of things are coming through my brain right now. When you ask what technology, so I would say I think there's several. What I would call marketing automation.
Love that topic.
And it's lead gen. All right, so now I'm going to get into my direct marketing background, which we didn't even talk about. But
love it.
Lead gen, right? Be it a Facebook ad, be it PDF report, giveaway, whatever the mechanism is to get somebody to raise their hand saying, oh, that's really interesting. I'd like more information. The problem right now with, I would say, 90+% of agencies is they are terrible at follow-up. I call it follow-up failure. So that person raises their hand. I mean, think about it. Here's an easy one to, I think, put in place. Someone calls you up and wants a quote, auto quote, home quote. This happened to me a couple years ago. My own house, decided after multiple years, I'm going to go check out some other options. Purposely picked a nationally based firm that I have a historic home. So it's not just a homeowners.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so
Much different.
All kinds of details there, but they specialize.
So you saved 15% of 15 million?
I did not. But I went to this agency, who I thought I wanted to experience their process, and I wanted to get a quote. I mean, it was partly both. And a short version of a longer story, we went through, they did a great job asking me questions, following up, gave me some proposals, had a conversation, some questions I had about coverages and what about this, what about that. Ultimately decided not to change. They had invested a lot of time in me, and I've never heard from them again.
Yep.
Follow-up failure. When I was already prepped, I wasn't quite ready to make that move yet, and nothing. Crickets. Now, I will also say my actual agent in Nashville area, who writes it now, and I have to say, again, I know enough sometimes to be dangerous, but I picked the agent because of the carrier they represented, right? So I didn't pick the agent and then they found it. I said, that company is the one I want to cover my house. And I've never heard from them in probably 12 years. Without me initiating a question, a comment, oh, I've got some jewelry I need to add. I've heard from the carrier more than I've heard from the agent. I believe that's typical. And the agents are like, oh, no, we don't do that. And I'm kind of like, I'm going to call BS on that. Do you even know what's going on in your office? And so having a systematic way, and again, I want to be clear here, a systematic way to help you engage and build relationships. This is not taking you out of the equation. It's actually you following a checklist and a path that you know works because you've tested it over time.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, there's been this migration of, this thought process in the industry where we can't scale a business if we're dealing with monoline homes, right? How do we become profitable doing that?
Right.
Technology and relationships.
It's a piece and relationship because, again, you could start with that open door.
100%.
But are you doing anything proactively to build the additional either auto, health, life, right? Even I'm a huge advocate of stupid insurance coverages. Now you're looking at me like, okay, what does he mean by that? Pet insurance, travel insurance, right? Think of and people buy it, but we're not selling it.
We don't.
Agents aren't selling it.
So true.
Right? Why not? That you talk about technology, the agent doesn't have to be involved. They just have to add it as an option onto the relationship there. Oh, by the way, I jokingly have said for years that insurance agency employees should go work at McDonald's for a couple of months. Because if they can train high school kids to say, do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
We have something to learn.
Yeah, what are we missing here?
Yeah. So do you feel like you can, so getting back to building relationships and using technology, I love going down the marketing path. Do you feel like you can automate a certain part of that with marketing to at least get you back to the door? Right? Because that's what you're talking about. I mean,
absolutely.
With technology, nobody would have to be picking up the phone to call you. It'd be nice if they did, but today...
Actually, today they don't want to call you. They don't want you to call them.
Yeah, it could be a lead magnet.
Yes. And that. So the other one I was thinking about in answer to your question, is what I call personal video. So not the kind of YouTube answer questions, but literally a webcam on your desktop.
Like Loom
or BombBomb, or there are many examples out there. But, forget sending a cold email. Start sending videos that are personalized, right? Again, 2020 changed a whole lot of things, and we haven't even quite seen the implications of all of that yet. But I think one of them is people are more used to being on video and seeing video. And I think that's a huge area of potential for building relationship. Because now you're still looking at them, right? They just happen to be, 10 miles or 100 miles or 1,000 miles away. And for an agency, that gives them the opportunity to expand their typical geographically limited market to something broader.
I'm meeting with a client next week that I was sitting in my basement during COVID. We put on an investing seminar about what was happening in the markets and the economy during COVID. And I got a list of who attended, and I shot each one of them a Loom video. And you get an email every time somebody watches it, so you know that they opened it, you know that they watched it. I'm going to talk with one of those prospects next week.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing.
Well, I think to me, it's identifying where your value as that agent is. We've talked a lot about the relationship, and we talked a ton about it on the show, because that's how you become a good advisor, is through the relationship. And use technology, though, to make the other steps of that process easier. So you mentioned like lead gen, marketing, even to current clients. Have that initial reach out be automated, or be, whatever it is, however you can make that simpler. That then allows, rather than, you've got 15 clients that are renewing this month, instead of going in and typing up an individual email to each one and having to figure all that out, create that first step of the process to be automated, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. But just being intentional about thinking through that, versus we've always done it one way. I hate that phrase.
Right.
But that's how our industry operates in a lot of regards. We feel like our value is in transacting the insurance with the insurance company or whatever.
That is unfortunately very true.
And that's changing with technology is allowing us to do that much more efficiently, even putting some of those tools in the hands of the client, and becoming truly asking about, hey, do you have a beloved pet? Or are you concerned about your travel?
Or what was your last vet bill? Or any of those. And again, those are just touch points. Who knows? Probably not a huge percentage. I always say you're not going to make a huge amount of money on that stuff, but you're also going to solidify the relationship.
That's where I was
going. The more policies, we know this. I don't understand why we don't implement it. The more policies you have with a client, the longer they're going to stay with you.
And even things outside of those, you call them stupid insurance policies, but
well, it gets people's attention when I say that.
Absolutely. Right? The non-standard, but life, health. You mentioned it's things like that.
My two girls got married, a number of years ago. Right now, I bought wedding insurance. I went online for it. Why? Because my agent didn't have it, and I didn't want to add it to my home. I mean, again, there are all kinds of those other coverages, even like in the benefits area. There's all kinds of stuff there. We don't sell benefits. Well, that's stupid.
Right? Well, it goes back to, you have to facilitate a relationship in order to get to the point of understanding that. And when that hasn't been the business model, it's hard to get to that point.
Right. It's hard. It's change management in a whole lot of different areas. Agency owner, staff, and frankly, kind of back to one of our earlier questions was, makeup of agencies today. Couple things. One is I'm convinced, I don't have any data to back it up yet, but I'm convinced that the average age of the agency owner reflects the average age of their staff, which reflects the average age of their customers. And so if that agent, it just intuitively, I think, makes sense. And if that agency isn't actively going out and recruiting younger, I will say, right, that agency's going to die because their clients are going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, without a focus there, and that means a whole different mindset because my kids expect things way different than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And an agency needs to adapt to that.
100%.
Yeah.
And okay, here's my plug. Get ready.
And does technology fit in there?
That's where Catalyit comes in as a strategic advisor to our subscribers to help them with this.
Yeah.
You know, the change management, the what are the options out there? Loom, very inexpensive. Some other ones more expensive. Are they worth it or not?
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on your goals and what you want to do. But we can expose our subscribers to a lot of things like what we've talked about that they might not ever see in their normal day-to-day because they're not paying attention to it.
Yeah. So I think we're coming up on time here, but how, if somebody listening wanted to learn more about Catalyit, where would they go? How would they?
So Catalyit.com, and it's...
You better spell it.
I was just going to say, so just so you know, the name Catalyit comes from catalyst for change and IT for technology.
Okay.
So changing technology. So it's, I should probably look at it right now. Catalyit.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation.
We could go on for a while.
Oh
I
man,
know.
we do that every time. We can keep going forever.
As long as we could get beers about 2.
You might have to have a speech.
I might have to do a little something in there. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you flying in, Steve.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I knew it was an important opportunity for me, so I wanted to take advantage of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we do appreciate it. Stay tuned, everybody, for our next episode, which will be the second one with Steve on the Bezos Letters, his best-selling book. And I think there's going to be a lot of value in that one, too. So see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Getting Past the Premium. We are excited to continue breaking down barriers and finding solutions together. If you would like to reach out regarding anything you heard in today's episode, find links and contact info in the description. Until next time, have a great day, and let's continue getting past the premium.